Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Today, really, it's a choice between a Trump recovery and a recovery that's happening all over America as we speak, all over South Carolina. I mean, you got the new GDP numbers coming out this week, and I don't know what they are, but buckle up. You're going to see the resilience and strength of the American people in this great American comeback. Man, so the choice really is, it's between that V-shaped Trump recovery and really a Biden depression.
Oh, Biden depression. Holy mother of cannolis. It's very interesting. CNN today has something about America's economy. The charts that show how Trump's economy has performed versus other presidents. And I'm going to say this. Take away the COVID and Trump's walking to re-election. So his economy to this point, right? So they're showing for jobs. And this is what I find. Remember, at the end of the day, what is it? It's the economy stupid. Chad, it's the economy stupid. It's the economy stupid. Why is that? Because if you're feeling well, if you've got money in your pocket, you're not stressed out about whether or not you're going to be able to pay your bills and maybe have a little left over in some investment, and life seems to be pretty good. Everything else kind of takes care of itself, right? You have a little bit more peace of mind, which makes everything, it's like if you're winning. Like I've been on teams where when you're winning, even though there's not great chemistry inside of a locker room, let me tell you what happens. Winning changes everything. The minute you start to lose, that's when everything goes super sideways. COVID is the losing part at this moment in time. If Biden wins, his speech that night should be first and foremost, I want to thank the COVID virus for helping me get to this level. And thank Trump for doing what he did or didn't do. But let's take a look at this. Jobs. To the same point before COVID hit, only Clinton was outperforming him. Unemployment. His unemployment was low. Very low. Historically low at times. Absolutely. Huge. Massive. You go down to medium income gains, and he was outperforming everybody. 9.2%. That's pretty damn good. The S&P, it was mixed. I mean, look, you look at Clinton. If Clinton goes from 1,000 to 2,000 on the S&P, he's doubled it. That's huge. If Trump goes from 2,000 to 3,500, he's not doubled it. At the end of the day, it's all kind of a mixed bag. He was still doing extremely well. That's just, he was. You can't deny that. Home prices. Home prices are still doing very well. Clinton, Bush, Trump, but 21.2% up. This is the economy again. Stupid. The economy's stupid. You're looking at this. Food prices. Trump had done a pretty good job, even though there were small increases up until this COVID. Consumer spending, we were doing quite well, middle of the pack, but then, again, it's rising again, but still. Manufacturing, Trump wins, period, case closed. 3.9%, second place is Clinton, 1.9%. Debt to GDP, about average, at times a little lower, until, yes, we got to the point where we had COVID and you see the massive spike, still behind Obama, but you see the rise in where it's at. Gross domestic product doing quite well behind Reagan and Clinton until, yes, COVID. What's this say? What a lot of people are worried about. If you look at the polls across the board, how will Biden handle COVID? Well, I think he'll do better than Trump. How will Biden handle race relations? I think he'll do better than Trump. How will Biden handle the health industry in question with our health care? I think he'll do better than Trump. How will Biden handle immigration? I think he'll do better than Trump. How will Biden handle the economy? Trump wins. Is it enough? I don't know if it's enough, to be honest with you. We're getting closer and closer. We're 6 days away. Thank God. And we're getting closer and closer. But when I looked at these charts, there was a lot that Trump goes out there and says. That sometimes, it's hyperbole. The reality is we live in a world of hyperbole. We were joking yesterday, right? We interviewed Cher the other day, and she says, well, if Trump wins, America won't exist anymore. Like, that's not true. That's hyperbole. That's not, you're saying something that's ridiculous. I've heard that forever. And Trump says stuff, greatest economy in the history of economy has never been stronger. Great economy. And sometimes you're like, okay, it's a little overdone. But when you look at these, until COVID arrives, it's not like something else happened. Missteps in the economy that caused the collapse. It's not like the reality was, yeah, he was kind of spot on in so many different ways. He was absolutely spot on. Is it enough, though, to save him? And that I don't know. That I do not know. What I do know is we have 6 days. And I think a lot of people are looking around and they're saying to themselves, I'm not judging you on anything that happened the prior 3+ years before. It is all being judged on one thing at this moment in time. And I don't blame people for that. We're a now reactionary society.
These second-term elections are almost always referenda on the president, but Biden is proposing a different way of doing this, a more traditional way for presidents to lead, and Trump is not leading. Trump's problem is not that he's conservative. His problem is that he's crazy. He's incapable of thinking about anybody but himself. Joe Biden has learned through bitter experience through his whole life that is exactly the wrong way to approach very difficult things.
And that is, And a lot of this is, I asked somebody yesterday, if Trump was more feelings-oriented, how would you feel about this? Well, it would be different. I said, not facts-oriented. Like, we should care about facts. In fact, the only thing we should care about is facts. Now, how you deliver facts, we can talk about all day. Like, there's ways of saying things, and then there's ways of saying things. We can, there's ways you can deliver messages. And I asked somebody, I said straight out, I said, I've looked at Biden's, what he's going to do with the COVID if he wins. And it's nothing spectacular. It's not like look, the hard work's been done. The sacrifice has been made. The money's been tossed at it. If he is to take over, if Biden is to win and he takes over, we'll have a vaccine probably by the time he's sworn in. Pfizer yesterday is applying for emergency authorization because they've already delivered 30 of the 40,000 people that are in trials. They've had their second shots and they look to be doing absolutely fine. And these are not just one type of person. People from, HIV positive, hepatitis, obese, diabetics, normal people who are really fit, black, white, all kinds of. And they think that they'll be ready and they'll have 40 million doses if and when they get the emergency authorization to use it. Biden will start with a running start. This isn't about that. He'll have a running start. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to were like, well, he's just more empathetic. So I said, it's about your feelings. Yeah. I just want somebody to kind of be there. And I feel like Trump hasn't been there. And look, I think Trump has a horrible time reading the room when it comes to this. I do. I think he's a horrible time reading the room. But this referendum is on a bit of the chaos. Absolutely. A bit of the division, 100%. But at the end of the day, I think most people would look at those numbers if they stayed steady without the COVID and say, yeah, you know what, I can deal with another 4 years of chaos. But this may be one step too far for them. Over 70+ million people have voted. Soak that in for a second. We're over 50% of what voted in the last election. By the time we get to the election, there's a good chance we'll have 100 million people that voted. We'll be 3/4 of the way there on election day. And I don't know how many people are showing up on Election Day. Is this all early turnout going to make Election Day rather quiet comparatively? Or is there going to be a mass rush to get to the polls on that day and the ballot box to do what? To vote for Trump? Because that's been the prevailing thought process in all of this is early voting, domination by Biden, day of voting, domination by Trump, and then we'll get whatever we get, either the night of, and I think we'll have it earlier than people realize right now and think, you know, it might not be for a couple days. I think we'll have a real good picture, and we may even have it by 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern. That is a huge possibility. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from you. It's crazy. It is. But when I looked at that and I went through all of these things this morning and I saw those 10 different charts, I thought, wow, I knew Trump's, economy, or, he gets labeled with it. The reality is it's America's economy and it's how we have gone about handling ourselves. But I look at that and I think to myself, if you're going to give him, all the hell and all the blame, you have to look and say, well, he deserves some of the credit as well. You can't just say it was me that did all the good, and when you fail, go, well, that guy made us fail. But that is a very telling thing, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are thinking to themselves, we're getting closer to getting out of this. Who do I want to run the economy when we're out of this? A guy that is going to heap on some taxes and more regulations, and I don't know if I want that. I don't know. Maybe I'll stick it out with Trump. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet, text the program. Check it out. HelloFresh.com went home last night. We had a delicious dinner. We did. It was lovely. Yeah, we did. We had a little Mexican food. Yeah, even though it's fall right now, we've got so HelloFresh changes over. They kind of roll with the seasons, which is what you do. You get 22 chef inspired and curated recipes each and every week. So you get the choice between low calorie. You get a choice between vegetarian. We're doing the family friendly option. My son's here, so I had to order extra meals. And it didn't take us very long. I put it together and away we go. We ate it up and it was great. And it is amazing. It's the number one meal kit in America for a reason. First of all, the food is absolutely fresh. It's recyclable packaging. It's got all of these great sizes for portions, so there's no food waste. And the cost is amazing. 40% versus shopping at the grocery store is what I'm saving. And that is awesome. I've added extra meals this week because Jack's here. I travel. I pause when I need to. It's that simple. It's America's number one meal kit. It's called HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com. Promo code is Benson. You're going to save $80 off across 5 boxes plus free shipping on your first box when you use promo code Benson. HelloFresh.com, promo code Benson. HelloFresh.com, promo code Benson. Chad Benson Show.
Hashtag me too. Hashtag immigration reforms. Hashtag help. I'm trapped in a hashtag factory and I can't get out. The Chad Benson Show.
No balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Urias to Adames. Call strike 3. The Dodgers win. Finally, the wait is over. The Dodgers are the champions of 2020 in a year like no other, where joy has been so hard to come by. Tonight, tears of joy. Let them flow. Tonight, there is joy in Mudville.
Yes, Dodgers last night. Dodgers win the World Series. Dodgers! Everybody's like, well, it's only 60 games. I'm like, you know what? We're going to give this one a Dodgers, you won the World Series. This counts as a regular World Series, considering the last 2 times you won the World Series in the last few years. The other 2 teams cheated. Astros. You won the World Series. Fantastic. Now, I don't watch a lot of baseball. I just don't have time. This year was totally weird and wacky. But I'm just going to come out and talk a bit. My dad played pro baseball. I love my dad. God rest his soul. But my grandfather passed away yesterday. My grandfather passed away 5 hours before the Dodgers won the World Series. There was no bigger fan of the Doyers than my grandfather. I mean, no bigger fan. Spending years going to opening day with him, spending years sitting on the couch with him while he's sitting on his recliner with his little dog, and we'd watch the Doyers. And when people say, why you call it the Doyers? Well, it's the Dodgers have a huge Mexican and Central American and Latin presence. And my grandfather, and like many others who came from Mexico, a little bit of an accent, and he said, I love the Doyers. And watching it last night, and I sent something to my uncle, and it just, and I said, Paul, it's completely fitting that on the day Grandpa dies, that they win the World Series. And it was great. It was great. Now, it's not without controversy. And we're going to touch on that. Because one of the Dodgers' best players yesterday was pulled from the game. And this is very interesting on why he was pulled from the game. We're going to touch on that because it'll be talked about today. And this is one of those things that we brought up not only during the baseball season early on, but in particular because there wasn't, they hadn't decided whether or not they were going to play baseball when they started bringing basketball back, and baseball's just kicking off, and they hadn't really decided. And we threw ideas around of what if in a series one of your best players had this happen, what would you do? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. We are 6 days away from the election. I'm excited just to get it over with. I've been talking about it for God knows how long, probably too long. But I do know this. When people say, who do you think is going to win? I continue to say this, America wins, because we're able to go to the polls. We're able to mail stuff in. We have made it easier and easier all the time. And this is the beauty of living in our republic. And the democracy that we have in our democratic republic is that we can do these things. And at the end of the day, America wins. That's who wins. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Sophomore Libby Klinger is up early on a Saturday, ready to roll.
These people will probably be home now.
Joining fellow campus Republicans to get out the vote.
There is a lot of enthusiasm among young conservatives to vote, especially in this critical year with everything that's been going on with the pandemic. We're out here canvassing today. So.
They're the diehards, but still say everyone they know is voting.
People are really starting to recognize just all of the different chaos within the political climate right now, that voting is the only real say that we can have.
Yeah, well, and that's a great say to have. Let's be real, right? You can go out and have your vote heard, if you will. It's weird. I'm going to have my vote heard. You write something down. Did you hear anybody hear it? No, you didn't. But young are voting. The young is voting like they've never voted before. They are voting in droves. And yeah, there are, look, I talked to several young people, and I'm going to tell you this, what you see on college campuses, the insanity, you get that in the humanities department. The other 40,000, 50, 60, who depends how big the college is, 1,000 people, just young kids. They want to party, want to have fun. They've got more of a libertarian slant. And when you're younger, you're supposed to be a little bit more liberal. As you get into the real world and you find out that the real world's going to kick in the grundle more than a few times. I told my son the other day, you're special to me, but the world doesn't think you're special. Look, and all that matters is the group that you have. You're special to me. Don't think that I don't think you're special. I love you, but to me you're special. But the world doesn't care about that. So you got to toughen up sometimes. I'm not, when you give everybody a trophy, it's kind of sad. I hate that. It's funny. I hear people say, I hate when they do that. But then there's a lot of people out there that are like, yeah, my kids got trophies. Look at all the 9th place trophies you have. And that's great if there was 1 million people competing. But when I talk to, because we have several interns that are here, or we did. I mean, now they're doing everything via Skype, and but we've got several young employees, and most of them have kind of a libertarian slant. Yeah, you know, marriage equality and choice and stuff like that, but they don't want open borders, right? Only these super extremes do. They don't want, taxes through the roof and to get rid of fossil fuels altogether. They have a pretty grounded way of looking at things, but we hear about the loud and the crazy because that's the shiny thing that people focus on. And that's it. I mean, when something bad happens, a shark attacks somebody, we're going to talk about Philadelphia, the police shooting there, and the response of that. Because it's not happening every second of every day, it's something new. When a plane crashes, a big one, we focus on it. When they land safely, we don't hear anything about it. And I think that's a lot of the young people, we just don't hear about all the other stuff. We hear the crazy, we hear the insane, because we're a nation of, ooh, look at that.
UVA Democrats are driving people to the polls. Hunter Hess waited with Maeve Connick for over an hour to cast an early vote.
We've been doing it a lot, especially with first-year students who don't know the voting process very well.
I don't know if I know anyone, any of my personal friends who haven't voted already.
Young voters are a crucial part of the electorate and are already making up a large share of early voting across 14 key states compared to 2016.
Yeah. And that is absolutely a massive thing. And I think people think that, and I'll say this, the Republicans are the party of older white people. Trump is different than that. There's a lot more support for Trump especially among black males. No way. Yeah. Really? Yeah, there is. There is more support for Trump in younger, because he's not seen as the old, even though he is an old white male, he's not seen as the old staunchy party that your dad and your grandfather used to be a part of, that were what? That were the system, the man. He's something outside of that. He is. At the end of the day, yeah, a good majority of these younger kids are liberals. Like we said, when I was younger, I had way different ideas than I do now. You get out, you live a little bit. Now, I was libertarian. But you grow and you start to learn. Well, what about this and what about that? And well, that stuff sounds great, but then in real theory, when you get out in the real world, what happens? None of it really comes to fruition, and there's too many chefs in the kitchen, and it's very interesting.
The share of the youth vote is almost double what it was this time 4 years ago in Florida. College students here and across the pandemic-stricken country largely organized virtually.
We found that young people who were marching and demonstrating not only were more likely to be registering people to vote, but were much more likely to be talking to other young people about the election and issues that they care about.
Democrats say that's the climate crisis and racial justice. Republicans, the economy and jobs.
Yeah, of course. One's about feelings. Let's be real. And we're going to talk more about race a little bit later. But one's very feelings based, reactionary, emotionally based. The other one is kind of very much data, numbers kind of thing. You got, right brain, left brain kind of thing. Right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain. I think Trump is reaching out in a different way, still behind the eight ball. The Republicans are very rarely, if ever, going to win the young vote. It's what happens when the young become older, when they go from 20, 22, 23 to 28. Homeowner, has a career, maybe has a business, husband, wife, whatever. They got a kid or two, or things start to change and it looks a little bit different. That happens as you mature. I expect that.
The Trump campaign says their best influencers are regular young people reaching out to friends.
Particularly right now, they're online, especially in this environment that we're in. So leaning into digital platforms is the best way we can reach young voters.
I don't know if it's because the pandemic has
reduced the number of activities that we can do, that everyone's like turned their attention. Yeah, like there's fewer sports to follow. So this is the thing everyone's focused on.
Yeah. So we'll see. But that's going to be huge. And because for years we've talked about what? Well, they don't vote. The young talk a good game, but they don't vote. If they did vote, and they are the biggest voting bloc, bigger than the Gen Xers. I mean, look, I'm Gen X, and of all of the groups, we're the smallest, right? The baby boomers are the biggest. The greatest generation is dwindling. But of all of those, there was bigger. At the height, the greatest generation was bigger. Baby boomers are massive. Gen X, kind of small. You got the millennials, much bigger. The Gen Zs are going to be much bigger. And if you get them out, if you get them energized, if you get them to come, you'd be surprised what can happen. And it's getting them energized. And for some people, again, it's the climate change is huge to them. For other people, and this is where I think the Democrats thump the Republicans in certain issues like that. But as you get older, you mature, things start to balance out a little bit. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. So last night, Justin Turner, Dodgers, third baseman, the beast. Guy looks just giant red beard. He looks like a Viking. Well, lo and behold, from last night, something took place in the game, and people are asking, what in God's name was that all about?
In the second inning of Game 6 of what ultimately ended up being the final baseball game in 2020, Major League Baseball got a call from the lab that runs the test for it, saying that Justin Turner had inconclusive results from yesterday's tests, and the tests from today had just arrived. Once those tests were run, Turner's test came back positive. Major League Baseball called the Los Angeles Dodgers. Word came down to the dugout to get Justin Turner out of the game now, and by the 8th inning, he was pulled from the game.
Yeah, so he's pulled from the game because coronavirus. Who? Coronavirus.
If you know anything further about Justin Turner.
Only that he tested positive yesterday. They got those results back this afternoon, ran the test from today, came back positive again. It's not a case of a false positive. I know that's been out there. It's not that way. Why he went on the field when he is positive, that is an excellent question.
So at first it was inconclusive. Second thing was, no, we had it, but they thought it was a false positive, so they had to do him again. And now the concern over, well, hold on a second. Did he spread this? How could this happen? How could you allow this to happen where you got a guy? But I talked about this when the NBA started, when the NHL started. I said, let me ask you guys a question. If you're a team, right, and let's just say, and I use this analogy, if LeBron tests positive and it's Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, you try to keep that quiet, don't you? Especially if he's not feeling anything. If he's just, asymptomatic. You're going to try to keep that quiet, right? You have to, you would think. And it sounds weird. Oh, no, you couldn't do that. No, COVID don't. But you're thinking about the moment, the now. This is the World Championship. We may never be here before. This guy's one of our best players, and Turner is one of their best players.
The Dodgers players have been together inside of this bubble in Arlington for a few weeks now. And, there's a sense of security among the players because they're supposed to be isolated from the outside world, because they're not supposed to have contact with anybody who has been exposed to the coronavirus. They don't know at this point. Now, toward the end of the year, there were a few positive tests in baseball that ended up with no spread, but we saw what happened with the Miami Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals, and so the concern certainly is there for the Dodgers.
Of course. At this point, they don't care. Why? Because they're all hammered. They just won the World Series. They're all drunk. I guarantee you he celebrated. They poured stuff on his head. You would like to think that they'd, like, if it was me at this point, we've all been together. I'm pouring champagne on you. Let's just get this over with and celebrate. And if we have it, not a lot we're going to do about it now. You not being in the locker room probably isn't going to stop that.
My understanding from various people is that he was told not to go on the field or asked not to go on the field. He insisted upon it. The Dodgers insisted upon it, and that is why he was out there. And at one point, he did have his mask off. He was mostly masked, but there was a point in the picture when he did take it off.
And that'll be the big thing. If they knew and then they insisted that he plays, that could be trouble potentially. Maybe next year for the Dodgers. Maybe he's suspended for a few games. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Chad Benson Horror Show Movie Countdown. Today's number 3. We're going to talk about that, which one it was. So far we've had Jaws. We had Friday the 13th. The third one I will tell you, just a little sneak peek. Out of all of these, the one that terrifies me the most. Yeah. Raycon, best earbuds around. Absolutely love them. E25s. Let me tell you about the E25s. So when Ray J put this together, he's a guy who's a music producer. He's an entrepreneur. He knows everybody in the music industry, Snoop Dogg and you name it. I mean, not just hip hop and R&B artists, but across the board, Melissa Etheridge and all of these. And he said, hey, I want to put these things together. I'm going to have these, my friends try them out. And they did, and they loved them. They loved these things. So the E25s from Raycon's best earbuds around. So why I love them is the fit. The sound quality is absolutely incredible. The noise isolating fit for when I'm making calls, video conference calls, whatever it is awesome. But also for me is the talk time 6 hours. The seamless Bluetooth pairing is great because I hate that when it just doesn't. But it's the fit. The fit, the comfortability, because I do so much. I work out so much. I go. Knowing that I don't have to fiddle with them, there's no wires, there's no stems, is incredible. Normally, it's been about $250, $200, in some cases $300. These start well under $100 for these E25s, and you're going to save big. Save an extra 15%. Go to buyraycon.com/Chad. Buyraycon.com/Chad to save an extra 15% on the best earbuds around, the E25s. Buyraycon.com/Chad. Chad Benson Show.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Now it's time for Chad's Evil Countdown. The best horror movies of all time. Can you handle it? Are you afraid? You should be.
All right. So we had Jaws, which I love. Yesterday we had Friday the 13th, which I absolutely love. Today we have the movie out of all of these that scared me the most. It was, at the time, terrifying. So everybody remembers the Blair Witch Project was something really big. People go back to the Blair Witch Project, and it was freaky. It was creepy. But lo and behold, a few years later, out came a movie called Paranormal Activity, shot for $15,000 by Oren Peli, starring Katie Featherstone and Micah Sloat. It spawned a bunch of other ones, which, by the way, by and large, most of them have been pretty good. I've enjoyed them. The movie cost $15,000. That's what it cost. It was purchased by DreamWorks and Steven Spielberg. Now, if you've not seen the movie, see it. It is creepy. It is scary. It's about a young couple in San Diego, California. Katie thinks that there's an evil presence in the house. And it goes from there, and her boyfriend, Micah, who's like a day trader, he's at home and he films all of this stuff, and it starts out little and it gets bigger, and then there's no denying that something's going on. There's the whole thing starting to unravel, and it is terrifying. And I just remember when my uncle saw it the first time, he saw it before I did, because the way they released it, and we'll talk about that, was very interesting. But he said, Chad, never has a piece of string and baby powder terrified you more than this. And I said, really? How they shot the movie was awesome. $15,000 is what they did. That was it. 15 grand. And they did no script. They gave an outline to the actors, let them essentially ad-lib most of the movie. They refilmed one scene and gave you a few endings, which they played. The way that they marketed the movie was they never showed you anything in the movie. They showed you the reaction of the crowd. They thought it was bombing because people were walking out when they were first trying to get it shown. But what was happening is people were terrified. Originally, when they bought the movie, they were going to redo the entire movie. After Spielberg and everybody saw it, said, no, we're going to do this. This thing's terrifying. Don't touch a thing. Today, ROI, return on investment, it remains the most profitable dollar-for-dollar movie ever released. The cost was $230,000 with a $200,000 reshoot, and it made $200 million at the box office. It is scary. It's called Paranormal Activity. It's number 3 in Chad's horror movie countdown. If you've not seen it, check it out. It is awesome. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Tweet at me, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. We're getting you over the hump in 6 more days. And then what? I don't know. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win big. I wouldn't count on that. The Economist just gives Trump a 5% chance. Nate Silver's 538, which came closest to predicting Trump's last win, gives him just a 12% chance. Biden gets 87%. Come on, man. But wait, the most reliable predictors, people who bet on politics, people who put their own money where their mouths are, they give Trump a much better chance, 35%.
Yeah. And why is that important? Because it is. Because when you're putting money on something, I always tell everybody who's huge Trump supporters or Biden supporters, if you're that sold for it and you think that this is going to happen, would you bet a year's salary? Would you bet your paycheck today? And I'm not just talking about, like, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you think about that. You know, if you're not, you're like, yeah, I'll bet that. What would make you uncomfortable? That's what I want to know. What makes you uncomfortable betting? Would you bet that? Because if it makes you uncomfortable, because that means you're uncertain and you're not quite sure. Polls get it wrong. The poll industry has said this. If we miss this, the industry's ruined. If we screw this up this time, it is ruined. Now, you can have, you could say, look, it's a dead heat here. It's that. But if you think that Trump, let's say he loses, but you thought he was going to lose by 10 points and he loses by, 20 points, that's still a victory for you. Maybe you feel, well, you know what? The pendulum swung we overcalculated. But on the other side, if you get it completely wrong this time, who's going to ever listen to you again? Betting is interesting because there's money involved. Now, most bettors that are real bettors who do it for a living, theirs is all they're based on analytics. You remember those shows you see on Saturday mornings? All right, you call up right now. I'm going to give you my 3 hot picks, and I'm going to throw in an extra bonus, blah, 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 blah. But guys who do it for a living, it's all analytics. There's no emotion in it. They don't bet their favorite teams because, quite frankly, many of them probably don't even care about sports. It's just another way for them to make money, and this is how they day trade. Instead of that, it's basketball. There's a great show, I think it's on HBO, where they follow around these guys, and all they do is bet. So this guy sits there. He's got 3 computers. He's in Atlantic City. He's betting all day. Big sums of money across the board on things like, it's Davidson versus like James Madison basketball, like games he doesn't, he's like, I don't even like sports, but I found the analytics here that pay it off right for me. And this is how I make a living. And this is what I do. Outside of that, I could care less about sports. I don't watch any of the games because I don't care. It's non-emotional. That's why people who are non-emotional are great at gambling, because they don't let the emotions get into it. And this is interesting because it is about betting. Who would you bet for if you had to get it right? And let's be real, even the House loses.
Let's build a better tomorrow for our beloved children.
Tuesday before Election Day, Hillary was at 75%. On election night, the betting began reversing before 9 p.m. While on TV, they were still saying things like,
Hillary Clinton has taken the lead. She has 68 electoral votes.
It looks like Donald Trump is more likely than not to lose.
Only hours after the betting had switched did they finally realize
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So bettors will see and change things. When you see people move big money into bets, you'll hear the line change overnight because somebody who's a big fan, who's become a billionaire or a millionaire, has got lots of money, moves the line because their hometown team's playing. This is different. Money's flying in, and Trump is gaining 60-40 in a lot of places. He's got a 40% chance, where if you go look at the polls, he's done. It's just a different way to look at it. It's a different thing to look at. And when you look at over time, it holds up.
The bettors are usually right. Over time, betting has been a better predictor than polls, pundits, statistical models, and everything else. Still, most media still rely on polls and expert prediction models, like the Princeton Election Consortium, which now says Biden's a 98% favorite. Really? 4 years ago, Princeton had Clinton at 99%.
Yeah, that didn't work out the way that they thought it was going to work out. Right now, depending on where you play, if you could, it's very interesting. You see the odds are zooming all over the place. And in some places, the odds have now become even across the board, meaning it's a pick 'em.
Bettors do better than models and polls because bettors consider things models often miss. For example, will many mail-in ballots not get counted? In the New York State primary this year, 20% were disqualified. Did polls miss certain groups of voters? In 2016, they overlooked people without college degrees. And of course, some voters just don't tell poll takers the truth.
4 years ago, we weren't discouraged because if we would have believed the polls, nobody would have voted.
It's getting closer. It's getting closer. And it's just a unique way to look at things. You know, too often you hear about like, oh, this poll and that poll. And I've got all the polls in the world. You can look at everything from the Real Clear Politics, and you can go look at NBC, Wall Street Journal. I look at the Investor Business Daily TIPP poll. Yesterday, they had it about a 3%. I think it was 50 to 47. And then, of course, you've got the other odds and ends that are out there for Biden. Some other polls, right? Trafalgar, they have it much closer than that, especially in specific battleground states where they are actually giving Trump the lead by a couple points. It's a much different thing. And betting is one of those things where it's just a different viewpoint that we don't see here because of what?
Who knows what mistakes pollsters are making now?
That's a solid national lead for Joe Biden.
That's why I'll trust the people who bet. But if you think these odds are wrong, don't complain to me. You can put your money where your mouth is. If you're right, you'll make money. Unfortunately, short-sighted American politicians banned most gambling. While some states recently relaxed rules for casinos and sports betting, betting on elections is still illegal in America.
All right, here's the updated odds if you guys want to know. If you guys just want to check some out, go to bookies.com, because not only does it give you the updated odds, this is very interesting. It gives you the daily tracker of what they're doing. Where are they? What time are they going to appear somewhere? It's actually super in-depth. So Kanye, 100,000 to 1. Howie Hawkins, Joe Jurgensen, the same. Kamala Harris, 20,000 to 1. Mike Pence, 20,000 to 1. Plus 170 for Donald Trump. Minus 200 for Joe Biden. At bookies.com. You can take a look and it breaks down everything. But in this day and age of us trying to figure stuff out with polls and look at this poll, but what about that poll? And over here's there's this, but what about that? When we break all of this stuff down, sometimes it's as simple as, would you bet your paycheck on it? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. We are 6 days away. One thing, though, with all of this going on in these 6 days away is the fact that the coronavirus is continuing to absolutely spread. You've got new breakouts everywhere. They're setting records everywhere. We're seeing a second and sometimes a third wave, not just here, but globally. It is ugly and in battleground states.
The spikes are not in any one place, but across the country. And health officials here in Wisconsin are pleading with people to stay home. The state yesterday saw its biggest one-day increase since the pandemic began.
What you need to look at in this, and this is something that I tell everybody, is look at the hospitalization rate. Some of the places right now where they're seeing their biggest hospitalization rate, they didn't really have what New York and Texas and Florida and Arizona had months ago. They're getting their first wave of hospitalizations and the first real crunch on their healthcare system. So this is their first big wave. They may have had it in the state. Obviously, it's everywhere. But this is their first real feeling of it. Like here in Arizona, we're rising, but the hospitalization isn't doing all, they've said, we're not under pressure. You got to be prepared. Plus, we got the flu season. So you're prepared, right? That's what you have to be. In saying that, you look at the mortality rate as well. Is this a worse mutated version, or is this a mutated version that isn't as deadly as the first strain? So the first strain that came from China that ended up in Europe, very deadly. The second strain that went from there, that landed in New York and came there, was much more deadly. By the time it got out to the West Coast, not as deadly, but it spread easier. Now what they're saying is the viral load in this isn't as big. So those are the things on top of just the numbers themselves that you have to look at. But there's no doubt, and Trump is not addressing this. And he hasn't. And to think that he's going to change, you're fooling yourself. It's just not going to happen. And this is one of the reasons he's having the issues that he's having. In another world, if he was more sympathetic and caring or whatever it is, would this be a win for him? I don't think so. I think, to be honest, the establishment media, if it was Donald Trump, if it was Obama, the establishment media would be saying what? They said it was going to be 2.2 million. There's only 230,000 people that have died. That's a win. And then Fox would be like, I can't believe 230,000 people died and they died on your watch and da-da-da. And it's just reversed now because we live in a day and age of hair on fire, part entertainment, part infotainment, and mostly reality television and a little bit of activism along the way. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. My grandfather passed away yesterday, and God bless him. And my uncle and I were talking about all the old pictures we have of our families that we need to put together. And that just reminds me, because I have Legacy Box, and I'm putting stuff together for my dad and my family. We've got old film, like film. I was explaining to the kids yesterday what film was. Like hey, this is what it's like. This were old projectors. And you put it in this box from Legacy Box. And it doesn't matter what it is. If it's an old camcorder tapes, if it's film reels, they send you a box and you go through it and you put all of your stuff in there. Right. And if it's a VCR, I mean, it doesn't matter what you have, photos collecting dust, and you want to put them all and preserve them digitally. And then you send it off. Antiquated media, right? They're not worried. What memories did you choose? Weddings, baby's first steps, family vacations, how long did it take? They've got everything. The process is easy. You pack it, you send it. The team digitizes it, everything by hand. Then you get it back and you enjoy it. You have a choice of thumb drive, DVD, cloud, ready to watch, share, enjoy. It is so amazing. Legacy Box is incredible. 850,000 families have digitally preserved their past. Legacy Box is the world's largest digitizer, and I'm telling you, it is amazing to see what they do. Get started future-proofing your memories today so you can gather the family and begin your trip down memory lane, which is great, especially as people get older and you think, what am I going to do with this stuff? You don't have to worry anymore. Go to legacybox.com/Benson. You're going to get 40% off your first order. Take advantage today of this exclusive offer when you're ready. Legacybox.com/Benson. It's an amazing Christmas gift. Legacybox.com/Benson. 40% off while supplies last. Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old intranet. What's trending? Well, let's talk about what's trending. Justin Turner is trending. Over 1 million searches. Who's that? The Dodger last night was pulled from Game 6. Apparently, they knew he had tested positive for the coronavirus, and they wanted everybody to keep it quiet. Eventually, the Major League Baseball, the powers that be, and I'm sure we'll find this out over the coming days, and there'll be conflicting stories for the next few days where you'll hear his take, and then there'll be a take, and then. But what I do know is apparently he was pulled. He had the coronavirus. Did he know before? Did Major League Baseball know before? I couldn't tell you. But he was pulled last night. In the end, the Dodgers won. Keith, I think his name is Renier, who was the head of that Nivium or whatever it was. That just, I don't know what it was. It's like a multi-level marketing sex scandal. He was sentenced yesterday, 120 years for it. But it is insane if you read the stuff that went on. It is just like, are you kidding me? Like, how did this happen? It shows you, though, right? It shows you, like, what people can do. A cult-like thing that is just nuts. Just crazy. And when you start to read some of this stuff, you're like, whoa, this is ugly. But he got 120 years. Head on over to Twitter. They're fighting. So last night, Omaha rally, very cold. Thousands of Trump supporters were stranded. Some of them were struggling. It was freezing. What do you think of that? I think, well, you went out there and that's what you did. I mean, you had a choice. You went and did it. I don't. What do you want me to say? Just go. Go. If that's what you want to do. I don't care if you go out protest. I don't care if you go to rallies. And if you want to stand out in the cold, there you go. I'm not blaming Trump for that. They made the decision. It got cold. You move on from there. 17 in Wisconsin is trending. Apparently, according to the new ABC Washington Post poll, Biden has a 17-point lead over Trump. Trump has a path, but if it follows the way that those polls go, that path is shrinking, and it is going to be a very narrow path. Not impossible, but very narrow. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. Check out Chad Benson Show TV on the YouTube as well. And check out our Facebook page. We do lives and stuff there all the time. It's Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Overnight, turmoil in Philadelphia. Demonstrators arrested, others wrestled to the ground as anger spilled into the streets following the death of Walter Wallace Jr., a man allegedly armed with a knife and shot by police earlier this week. The unrest sparking a second night of looting. Walmart and other local businesses ransacked throughout the night. Wallace's family now demanding an end to the violence.
Yeah, because they're upset. So if you don't know what's happened, and we touched on it briefly yesterday, I like to know all the details, like the deets, right? We got to know the deets, as the kids would say. I've seen the video. It's a tough video to watch. It's a tough video to watch. Walter Wallace Jr., 27, was shot and killed. It's on video. They have body cam, but also people were filming it. If you've lived in the Northeast, streets are much different. Like, I live in urban sprawl. I'm more rural where I live, but I work in urban sprawl. I grew up in Southern California. Places like Philadelphia, New York, Boston, they build up, not out. We built out. So neighborhoods are close together. Streets are compact. It was like when I was living in certain parts of England. It's the neighborhood. So there was a bunch of people around. His family had called twice because he was having an episode. Manic, a breakdown, whatever it was. He had a knife. You can hear on the camera on the guy's phone the police saying, put the knife down. Now, they're going to a call. They didn't initiate the call. They were called. Why? Because his family was worried that he was going to hurt somebody or himself. And he had a knife, and he's in the neighborhood. He's having an issue. How are they supposed to know? They're not social workers. The problem is we expect the police to cure all ills. Hey, is there any way you can be a marriage counselor? Maybe a drug counselor? Maybe you could be a therapist for abuse? They're coming out to do something. So let me tell you the anatomy of how things actually break down when there's a situation like this that's a riot. They go, that you hear him, they're walking backwards as he's kind of coming at them. His mother's trying to grab him. If you've not seen the video, he's pushing her off and she's doing everything. And then after they've circled, in the street, and there's cars parked in the street, they're going in and out of cars. And after he's circled, eventually he starts coming at them and he's got a knife and they shoot him. And you're like, uh-oh. Now, I'm telling you this, I don't know what the police are supposed to do. There's a question of why didn't you use tasers? I think that's a question that's going to be asked. And it probably needs to be asked. Why didn't you use tasers?
One of the questions a lot of people are asking is why these officers didn't use tasers. Well, the commissioner says that while some officers on the department's force do have tasers, these officers did not.
Well, why don't they have them? Is it a money thing? Is it a special training thing? That's very, those are fair questions. If they don't have them, then they don't have them. Why didn't you shoot him in the leg? Because you aim at center mass. Aim small, miss small, aim big, hit big. This isn't the Wild West, right? Like, this isn't Doc Holliday. This isn't Bass Reeves, greatest lawman ever, for those of you who don't know. The inspiration for the Lone Ranger. This isn't that, right? Listen, Wild Bill Hickok, I'm gonna shoot the gun out of you. This isn't what that is. So let me tell you about the anatomy of how a riot works. And last night there was another one in D.C. Why? Because a guy riding on the sidewalk wearing no helmet on a moped, when the police allegedly gave pursuit, in which the guy was eventually struck by a car and he died, and that's the police's fault. But let me tell you how stuff in unrest starts. Did you hear The did you hear thing. The did you hear thing is great. Did you hear? And then the telephone game begins. By the time everybody in the street hears about what's going on, it's changed 50,000 times. People like to tell stories that make things seem interesting, so they'll add a little bit of flavor even though they weren't there. Then people are pissed and angry and upset, and away you go. You guys remember the movie, Producer Phil, you might remember, Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Remember that movie?
Why, yes, of course.
Great scene where, just before the hot dog scene, inside of the cafeteria. Right? Phoebe Cates. And they're sitting there talking. And Phoebe Cates says, hey, I heard that Mr. Hand got stabbed. And she says, that didn't happen. I was there. He was called a blank. Things get around. And did you hear becomes something that it's completely not. But by the time that you've heard it, in your mind, you no longer care about the actual truth because you have decided that the truth is the first thing you've heard. The narrative is always what? Police are bad. White cops are evil. I don't care that he had a knife and that he was threatening people and that he was called on twice, his family did, because of how erratic and crazy he was. None of that matters. By the time you've heard it, he was unarmed, sitting there, doing nothing. They came up and shot him for no reason. And then chaos ensued. Everything, and if your narrative always is, cops are bad. Because nobody ever finds out, and this goes with everybody, in politics, pop culture, and nobody ever finds out the truth. They don't want to know the truth. The truth is what they want to hear, but also kind of what they make it. Like, what do you want to hear? Well, my narrative is the police are bad. Well, then I want to hear that the police have done something bad because it backs up my narrative. And the person telling me has also been told his entire life or her entire life that the officers are bad. And that seeing it doesn't change their mind. It doesn't. Guy dies in a moped accident. You're not wearing a helmet. You're supposed to be. You want to be pissed at somebody? Get pissed at the people who made the law that says you got to wear a helmet. Don't get pissed at us. We're just trying to enforce the law. You're driving on the sidewalk. You're not wearing a helmet. Now I'm getting blamed, and everybody else here is wearing uniforms getting blamed for you dying because you ran when you weren't supposed to wear a helmet? Are we just going to go, well, you know what? You do what you want to do. We're not going to do anything. But along the way, I can guarantee you the telephone game happened. And as the telephone game started to happen, the story changed dramatically. So the truth never mattered because now there's something to be angry about and it fits the narrative of what you want to believe. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. Bill Maher was on with Jimmy Kimmel talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, saying the things that we said.
Well, it's not like her death was a shock.
Well, it was, and yet it was, though.
Really?
I mean, she
was 100 and had cancer like a million times. I mean, she was a great justice, but she should have quit.
You can't even give you a compliment. It's impossible.
Well, no, I mean, it was very Walter Cronkite. It was very, a flash from Dallas. I should have taken my glasses off. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died at 110, but she should have quit.
She should have quit. What we've always said. She should have quit. You're mad Amy Coney Barrett's there? Ruth Bader Ginsburg had every opportunity to retire 10, 12 years ago. The Obama administration had everything. They could have sailed through somebody that fit what they want on the court, and that would have been that. That would have been that. And I will say this. I think 10 years ago, if she would have stepped away, knowing that she was still alive, that it wasn't because of a death or anything like that, that if she would have stepped away at that time, even the Republicans might have said, well, they're just replacing like for like. She's stepping away. And you know, I mean, But she didn't. She chose to stay on. She wanted to be replaced by a woman president nominating somebody, and it failed.
She should have quit.
You think so?
Of course.
She should, yeah. Well, when should she have quit?
The Democratic plan for the Supreme Court was Ruth Bader Ginsburg doesn't die. That's why they're such a loser party. I mean, I vote for them, but they don't know how to do politics. I mean, Obama did have her over to the office.
Yeah.
You know, when he was still in office, and to hint.
She should have. Now, I don't know what they're going to do. The thought process of packing the courts, they're thinking about that. You know, Puerto Rico and D.C. as a state, they're definitely thinking about that. There's a lot of things they're looking at, but I remind, the filibuster. Harry Reid came out the other day and he said, I give him about 2-3 weeks to work if Biden wins to work together. And if they don't, then you kill the filibuster. And then all bets are off. And, the checks and balances we start to put in place start to really erode fast. And then what happens is as they find out, country turns against you. So, whoa. We don't want one party system like this. We're not going to let you run willy-nilly all over everybody. You ain't going to do that. And then away we go. But they had the opportunity. And that's just it. You have to remind people. When I hear people come out and say, I can't believe they did this. This is wrong. This is not the will of the people. And I have to remind them, it's exactly the will of the people. You may not like it, but President Trump is still exactly that. And if he loses up until January 20th of 2021, he's still the president of the United States. So he gets to do presidential things. And this has happened before. And it probably will happen again. And then again. But she should have quit. She should have absolutely left when she had the chance, knowing full well they could have replaced her. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. I do. Car Shield is amazing. So I got to take the van in and get some work done on it. Call Car Shield. They're like, just take it to the place you want to take it. We take it back to the dealership. And they're like, we're going to get everything handled for you. Do you need a rental car? I'm like, nah, I'm lucky I have another car. I'm not really worried about it. But that's how easy it is. Now, plans start as low as $99 a month. The van I have is a little bit older. It doesn't have all the widgets and the widgets and all that stuff in it, so I'm not really worried about it. I have a newer car that does have all of those things, and so I'm more worried about the sensors than I am the engine. This, I'm a little bit more worried about the engine rather than sensors because I really don't have any. It's up to you. You call them up. Be very specific on what it is that you're looking for. 800-CAR-6000. Promo code is Benson. 800-CAR-6000. Promo code Benson. When you use the promo code, you're going to save 10% right there. But 24/7 roadside assistance, a rental car for free. And like I say, you choose the shop, pay a small deductible. They get it handled. It is that simple. Find out more on how you can protect yourself from cover repairs and protect your bank account. Go to carshield.com, carshield.com. Use promo code Benson to save 10%. Or call 800-CAR-6000. Promo code Benson saves you 10%. A deductible may apply. Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
My dad's also coming. I don't care about your dad, Spencer. I just care about Zach and Kelly.
We all want these new kids to feel welcome. Let's see what happens.
Can we talk?
You only know how Bayside works for kids like you. Hot kids. Privileged kids. Privileged kids.
Bayside. You're the man, Coach. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. A single childless adult who parties with kids.
Oh, Saved by the Bell reboot. Not only is it happening, it is here. And Zach is the governor of California. Weird thing is he looks almost the exact same. So they all go to Bayside, and everybody's rich, apparently. Everybody is. So you got Elizabeth Berkley, Mario Lopez. They're going to revive their characters as Jesse Spano and AC Slater. You got new kids. And, it's nostalgia. It is. I don't know if it'll pay off or it won't. I will say this. What's paid off for, was it Netflix? First it was like YouTube, and then it went somewhere else, and now Netflix is Cobra Kai. It's totally paid off. You know, they were loving it, and it's weird. And now, the Karate Kid, Daniel-san, he's the jerk. And, William Zapata is, Johnny is not so much the villain that he was. It's very interesting. But the nostalgia, I don't know if it'll pay off, but we'll see on this. But I think what they're trying to do is weave in enough of the nostalgia, but then also make it like a teenage kind of drama. So it'll, parents and kids can watch it together. Speaking of something kids can't watch, I'm going to say this. I saw some of it, not all of it, but we'll talk about the questionable issue after this.
I hope quarantine never ends.
As Borat would say, very nice. Amazon says the Borat sequel film was streamed by tens of millions of customers during its debut this past weekend. That's a big number for sure and would make it a huge box office hit, but we didn't get any more details from Amazon, like exact numbers. Or did those viewers watch just a few minutes or the whole thing? Meanwhile, an independent company, Samba TV, which analyzes these things, says 1.6 million households watched Borat 2 last weekend. Amazon says that number's off, but again, didn't provide specifics.
I saw the question. I've seen some of it. I've seen, not all of it. And Jack's here. I'm not watching some of that stuff. Some of it's ridiculous. I think it's over the top. I think it's worn out. It's welcome. Borat, the first Borat was funny because the character was funny, yes, but there really wasn't any. He was coming to America, America, the whole nine. It was the way it was, and it was like it was. Oddly enough, as horrible and as uncomfortable at times as it was also very innocent. This had definitely, we hate Republicans and all that kind of stuff, and wants to show everybody how, hey, real Americans are all of these things. But the Giuliani thing I saw. Now, if you just watch a singular clip, you're like, when you watch the whole thing, you're like, that is not anywhere close to what everybody thought it was. And it's made out. And it shows you, just getting a clip, no context, what it could be. Does it look bad? It could. If you're seeing it in that moment. When you watch the thing, he's tucking in his shirt. We're moving on with our lives. But he touched her back. Settle down when he touched her back, for God's sakes. Look, Giuliani's lost the plot, and he is doing stuff that is skeezy. But as far as that goes, it's old. It's old. The first one, I should have just left it at that. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet, text, Chad Benson Show TV on YouTube. Check it out, kids. 6 days away from the election. How excited are you? How super excited are you? How are you going to react? You going to burn something down, or are you going to go, and move on with your life if your person doesn't win? Just curious. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
These second-term elections are almost always referenda on the president, but Biden is proposing a different way of doing this, a more traditional way for presidents to lead, and Trump is not leading. Trump's problem is not that he's conservative, his problem is that he's crazy. He's incapable of thinking about anybody but himself. Joe Biden has learned through bitter experience through his whole life that is exactly the wrong way to approach very difficult things.
Howard Dean. Woo! Not the president, by the way. Howard Dean was not the president. Yeah, they're just different. Look, I'm going to say this. A lot of things. I think Trump loves America. Other people disagree with me. I think he does. I think he absolutely loves America. He loves himself more. I will say that. You won't get me, but he loves America. He does. He loves America. But he does love himself more. This is just different. So there is a breakdown. Wait a minute. It's the economy, stupid. The economy, stupid. We've heard that for years. The economy's good. What happens? You feel good. You feel good. You got a job, a little money in your pocket, not worrying about stuff. People always say money doesn't buy happiness. No, it doesn't. You know what money buys you, though? Peace of mind. Peace of mind makes it much easier to be happy. That's I never thought of that. I never thought of. Yeah, that's what it buys you. It buys you peace of mind. If you're not worried about your next paycheck, if you're not worried about keeping the lights on, if you're not worried about making sure there's food on the table, if you're not worried about things like that, if you got the things you need, a little bit of money's getting put away, you feel happy because you've got peace of mind. It allows you to just breathe a little bit, which less stress. You're going to be happier. Some people are miserable. By the way, I have friends who have a lot of money. And they're miserable. And I knew them when they didn't have a lot of money, and they were miserable. And I have some friends who don't have a lot of money, and they're happy. They get stressed out at times, so they're happy. But by and large, 90% of us, we don't live in that realm. We live in the realm that if we've got a little bit of peace of mind because the economy's pretty good for whatever reason, we tend to, it's easier to be happier. So I found this to be interesting. The referendum on COVID is 100% true. This is about COVID. This is not about Trump and his craziness, because he's absolutely been crazy. At times. He said all kinds of stuff. He's done all kinds of things. He's just, wow. But there is something on America's economy. 10 charts. So these are charts on CNN about the economy. Why does it matter? Because once again, it's the economy, stupid. So when you look at these, what is Trump always touting? It's the greatest economy in the history of economies. There's never been a better. Midas did not have the touch that I have. And he goes through his thing and he talks about how great it is. Is that true? So he took over president in 2017. The economy was pretty good. We'd added jobs for almost 80 straight months. Trump continued it big time and continued to see the unemployment stay steady and drop. But then COVID hit. So let's break down this. Jobs. Where does he rate? Now, the rating scale on these is Clinton, Reagan, HW, Obama, W, and Trump. He was behind only Clinton. Now, Clinton had two runs at it. Reagan had 2 runs at it. Obama had 2 runs at it. W had 2 runs at it. But he was behind only Clinton. At this pace, he was better by far until COVID. Then, now, there's been a rebound, and you could see it. But up until that point, he was kicking it. Unemployment down, only behind Clinton. Then through the roof. Now it's coming back down, but you see it once again. Common denominator, COVID. Medium income, Trump at this point in his presidency against all of the other ones, Reagan, Clinton, both Bushes, Obama, crushing them. Through the roof. S&P is the middle of the pack. And then but it's made its way back up. But by and large, at this point, only Clinton was he behind. Home prices still staying steady, only behind, at this point, W. Food prices, he actually did very well, keeping the cost down. Consumer spending, middle of the pack, but falls off. Everything along here shows you exactly where it happened. Manufacturing, by the way, he was in the lead. Manufacturing jobs, he was blowing everybody away. Even when it came to debt, even though they're spending like sailors, Reagan, Obama, all of them well ahead of him until this. Translation, this is a referendum on that and the leadership. And the choice is, how do you want this to play out? Was it overblown? I think potentially it was extremely overblown. Was it also something that we should have paid attention to, been serious, more targeted with, that Trump could have led from the front in doing certain things? Yes. Do I hold him 100% responsible? No. I don't. I don't hold him 100% responsible. I think the mayors, the governors, the counties, the health worker, everybody's got a part to play. But at the end of the day, the buck will stop with him. This referendum, if there is one, on Trump isn't going to be for the chaos. It isn't going to be for the crazy tweets. For some people, that is. But for the average person and the exhausted majority, which is the 70% of us, right, who are a little bit right, a little bit left, but we live our lives, this is about the coronavirus. And do we think that Joe will do a better job? Will Biden be better? He'll be more compassionate. He'll show more empathy. And for a lot of people, that's what they're looking for. Does it mean he's going to do a better job? I don't know. I'll say this, by the time, if he wins, he becomes president, the groundwork and everything will already be done. He'll just be implementing something that Trump helped get to. But at the end of the day, while you could blame Trump if he loses for all this stuff, if we get a vaccine, it isn't because of Joe Biden. It isn't. So you can blame Trump, but then you got to give him credit. And that's the problem nowadays. We live in a world where we want to blame one side, but we won't give them credit for the things they do. Somebody said yesterday, Chad, you're a coward because you don't take a side. I said, no, I take a side on every issue. Ask me an issue. I will tell you how I feel about that. What you want is just check the box. I don't do that. Shows me you're not independent in thinking. What you're really thinking is, I have one belief system that I want this side to affirm for me, and I take nothing else in, and I will look at no other things. And I tell everybody this. You'll know where I voted on the day because I don't hide it. And no, I haven't voted. And I have 3 choices to choose from. And yes, Jo Jorgensen is one of those choices. She's a libertarian candidate. She also looks like she could have been an avatar, but I'm not going to say that, but I said it out loud. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. All of that being said, we do have a rise right now in COVID. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's right here. It's front. It's center. You're seeing rising hospitalizations. You're seeing a lot of different things. And now we have to figure out, is this the same virus? Is it a mutated virus? Is it more deadly? What does it look like when it comes to hospitalizations? These things are the things that people are paying attention to. And this is where I think Trump misses the ball. I think on the website now, the White House website and his administration, he puts the credit that they've eradicated or eliminated the pandemic, which is not true. It's not true. Like, that's not true. Do I think we'll get there? 100%. But it is frustrating right now because the almost ignoring it, there's a happy medium, Mr. President. You can tout the things you've done. You can talk about the rebound that's coming. You can also acknowledge the things that are going on. Ignoring that elephant in the room, and it's a big elephant, is not something you want to do. Just me. I'm just one voter. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Rough Greens. Talk about my dog Doodle all the time. Somebody goes, have you really given it to your big iguana? I said, yeah. So it's not dog food. And I have to remind, it's a supplement. So it comes in a bag and you sprinkle it on your dog's food. Your dog's food was meant to sit on a shelf for years and never meant to be fresh. So it's not living. And this brings it to life. Vegetables, minerals. It's got probiotics, omega-3, 6, 9. It's got all of these things and they like the taste of it. Yeah, but I've sprinkled it on Winston's food before, who's my big iguana, and he eats it. You got to put it on his banana. He will eat around stuff to get to his banana. But for my dog Doodle, who had arthritis in his hips, and my dog Doodle had horrific fatty tumors, you could feel them and see them. I didn't know what we were going to do with him. So we started giving him Rough Greens, and that was about 7 months ago. When we first started giving to him, 7 days afterwards, you could notice something was different. By 10 days, totally different. By 2 weeks, it was insane. Rough Greens is something I swear by. I give it to my puppies. I give it to Doodle, and I'll continue to do so as long as I possibly can, and they love it. Get your Rough Greens. It's a 2-week, right, jumpstart program. It's $14.95. Go to roughgreens.com/Chad, ruffgreens.com/Chad, or call 833-MY-DOG-88, 833-MY-DOG-88. Order Rough Greens, put it to the test. You will not be disappointed. Rough Greens, we make any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
No balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Urias to Adames. Call strike 3! The Dodgers win! Finally! The wait is over! The Dodgers are the champions of 2020 in a year like no other, where joy has been so hard to come by. Tonight, tears of joy. Let them flow. Tonight, there is joy in Mudville.
Doyers! Victory last night for the Doyers. Great game, 3-1. Dodgers champions. Last time champions, 1988. Of course, the famed Kurt Gibson home run. You guys remember that one? The mighty Oakland A's. The Dodgers, the uber underdogs. They had the Smash Brothers with Canseco and McGuire, the A's did. They had Dennis Eckersley. They had all of that great team. The A's were just, this was a formality. That's all this was. We're just doing it. Dodgers down in the first game in 1988. Remember this? Gibson, their best players, injured. Lo and behold, Eckersley's out there. And you see Gibson, who's not supposed to play at all, but he's on the roster, limp, torn hammy and all, hits the home run, which sets the entire table for the series. Dodgers win 4-1. And they thought, well, there's going to be years where they'll have a chance. Since then, it's been a couple of opportunities where they've had a decent run here or there. And then the last several years, they've been not only in the playoffs, but in the World Series and lost both times, including the heartbreaker to the cheater Astros, and then the getting thumped by Boston. But last night, they won. Strike shortened season, crazy. They won. It counts. We're dealing with it the way it is. But it's not without controversy, and it has nothing to do with anything other than what took place with Justin Turner, one of their stars, and him even being in this game.
In the second inning of Game 6 of what ultimately ended up being the final baseball game in 2020, Major League Baseball got a call from the lab that runs the test for it saying that Justin Turner had inconclusive results from yesterday's tests, and the tests from today had just arrived. Once those tests were run, Turner's test came back positive. Major League Baseball called the Los Angeles Dodgers. Word came down to the dugout to get Justin Turner out of the game now, and by the 8th inning, he was pulled from the game.
Now, the controversy is, when did they know? When we started everything back up and the NBA started, I said, if it's Game 6 or Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, and LeBron James tests positive for COVID, and you're the Lakers, you going to really want to tell anybody if LeBron's feeling fine? Probably not. And I bet LeBron will be like, don't tell a soul. The fact that they called down on the phone and said, you need to get him out, this is where the controversy is going to come in.
If you know anything further about Justin Turner.
Only that he tested positive yesterday. They got those results back this afternoon.
So they're saying he tested positive the day before and got the results back. They're saying the Dodgers, well, it was inconclusive, and then he tested earlier in the day, but by then he was playing, and then we got the phone call. I don't know. Here's where the controversy is going to be. everybody's going to have a story. One thing we do know is they pulled him eventually. What happens and whose story has all the truth?
My understanding from various people is that he was told not to go on the field or asked not to go on the field. He insisted upon it. The Dodgers insisted upon it, and that is why he was out there. And at one point, he did have his mask off. He was mostly masked, but there was a point during the picture when he did take it off.
Interesting. Very interesting. See what happens. See what Major League Baseball does. It's the end of the season. Dodgers are world champions. Yeah, baby. It's good to see something happen to Los Angeles in their sports franchises. It's only a couple weeks ago they won the NBA championship. But saying that, if Tampa Bay would have won last night or would have won the series, the Lightning won the NHL. My goodness me. Crazy. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. One of the things that made me smile even more last night is the fact that my grandfather passed away yesterday. I thank everybody for the kind words, but he was the biggest Dodger fan in the world. In fact, we're thinking about getting a Dodger headstone for him, and the fact that he died just a few hours before they won the world championship, a little smile on my face. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
United States Election Project says more than 71 million Americans have already cast their ballots. That's more than half of the total votes counted in the 2016 general election. Early in-person voting accounts for around 23 million of those votes, while mail-in ballots make up the remaining roughly 47 million. The early voting numbers are especially high in critical battleground states, including Florida and North Carolina. Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, Washington.
71 million. So we got 6 days, 5 days really, because in the sixth day they said vote. So the 5 days, we could get over 100. It is very possible that we're between probably 90 and 100 million, if not over, by election. So you're talking about more than 2/3 on election day of the people that voted in the last election. So it was like almost 130 million. So you're heading over the 2/3 mark already before the actual day itself when people vote. That's massive. Now, how much of it is for Trump? I think it's a very fair question. How much of it is it for Biden? Again, another very fair question. I think early voting is probably favored the Democrats and Biden. I think that you're like yesterday here out in Arizona, one of the reporters, she was saying that she was surprised because everybody that was at the precinct she was at that was voting early, the majority of them, vast majority of them, were there for Trump. So, and I don't know if people are getting it, if people are getting it early because they're worried about, I don't want to be there on the night. There could be trouble. I don't want to wait extra long lines. For whatever reason, why people are doing it this fast, this early. The mail-in obviously has something to do with it. But you're seeing now, Producer Phil, you voted yesterday, am I correct?
I did, yes.
And you didn't wait long, though.
No, the voting lines were actually huge around my area for the last 3 weeks. And when I was driving past the other day, there wasn't much of a line. I was in and out in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's good. And I know in Georgia and a few other places, it's nuts. So, what happens on the night? So the way that this thing has been, has been dissected, the way that, everybody's out there with their prophet, I'm a prophet and the prophet says this, and the way I see this thing playing itself out is people expected a early run, mail-in voting, early voting for the Democrats, but they've always expected on the night that red wave, if there was going to be one, was going to be that day, that Trump's supporters didn't trust the mail, wanted to do it in person. That's what the Republicans were going to do. And is it possible? Yeah, I think it's possible he has that. Obviously, the battle of the misinformation when it comes to the mail-in voters. People have asked me over and over, do I think mail-in safe? I do think it's safe. Do I think there are going to be issues with it? Absolutely. Do I think it's nefarious? Very small part of it may be nefarious. Most of it will be incompetency, if there is a ton of it. But most states have it down. Some states don't. That's just the reality, Democrats. I'm here to tell you. Places like Colorado that have things in check. This is what they've been doing in Oregon, where it's all mail-in voted. Places like that, they've got it down. Other states that are trying to do it don't, in some cases, have it down the right way. So you can expect issues. And then, of course, there is can I do this? Or is this real?
In 22 states, ballots are counted if they arrive in the days after the election, as long as they are postmarked by Election Day. There's nothing new about voting by mail, but President Trump continues to attempt to sow doubt about it, tweeting without evidence, big problems and discrepancies with mail-in ballots. Must have final total on November 3rd. Twitter put a warning on that message, saying it is disputed and might be misleading.
I've never had a problem with it. I've looked at all of the reports that I can find out there, from the Brennan Center to Heritage to, you name it, across the board. And I've looked at every report I can. I don't feel uncomfortable. Some people do. And this is the building up of the disinformation that may have nothing to do with whether or not you vote, but all have to do with whether or not you win or lose and who you can blame it on. Because I talk to a lot of people who are Republicans who say if Trump loses, it's because they stole it from him. And I talk to a lot of people who are Democrats who say if Trump wins, it's because he stole it. So right there, you've set yourself up. I don't have a problem with it. I never have. I think if you can have absentee balloting, but I do understand there are some places where it's like, well, it doesn't have to match, and other places where it absolutely has to match. And they've got handwriting experts, and they've got people that are looking at these things and matching them up. So it should be that way. Look, if we're going to do this, it's not that hard to do this. It shouldn't be this. We make the most basic things insanely hard. And we shouldn't. But we do. And then, of course, you've got the ever-popular Beto O'Rourke.
This is by far the most voter-suppressed state in the country. What that means is that our state government has tried very hard to keep black and Latino voters from going to the polls.
But how? Why? Well, what are they doing? Well, they're moving some ballot box. There's going to be a ballot box here, okay? But what is it that they're doing? Like, do they have people outside that says no blacks or Hispanics allowed? Do they have people who, maybe they want an ID or they're going to ask people questions? I mean, what is it that's going on? Like, when people ask, say something like that, you just ask the question. It's like with the whole thing with the voter ID. It's not that hard. Well, it's too hard to get a voter ID. Why is it too hard to get a voter ID? Why is it too hard to get an ID? You're a grown-ass human being. You should have an ID. Right? Like, this is not new. But that's so you see both sides. You got the one side saying, what? Hey, mail-in votes. It's all fraud. It's all it is. And then you got the other side saying it's voter suppression. We're not even there yet. Making up excuses. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Do love hearing from every single one of you. I found this to be hilarious. I'm going to tell you guys this. The Barrett thing. She's been confirmed, but sometimes you just need to laugh. This is a whispering lady about the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett.
Don't mind me. I'm in the bath, but while I'm in here, I got a notification that Amy Coney Barrett was officially confirmed to the Supreme Court. I'm scared. I'm scared for me who need help. Everyone except white men. So, please vote next week.
Everything is an identity. Why are you scared? I'm just curious. Is it the Handmaid's Tale thing? Is that it? Are you one of the breeders that you're going to be sent off, apparently? Like, what are you afraid of? Like, what in God's name could you be terrified of in your bath? I'm just, like, that is super emotional there. And what's the fear of? Because it sounds like you're terrified of something. Producer Phil, she's not a vampire, is she?
I hope not.
Could you imagine that? Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you guys this. We left this out in the whole Senate thing. She's a vampire. She's not a vampire. I saw Blade. Great. She's part of the High Council? Totally. There's Alex Jones. She's a reptilian. We all knew it. Everybody knew she was a reptilian. Guys, I'm here to tell you, she's a reptilian. It's awesome. It's going to be great. You guys have no idea. We're not done, though, because we can always go back to our favorite.
I'm terrified. Listen to me, Republicans. Listen. You are the people in history they warned us about. They warned us about people like you. Pay attention. We're losing our democracy. Wake up. Wake up.
It's hard to believe that both of those people are voting. You've lost your mind. You've lost your mind. That's the scary part of it all, right? Yesterday I was talking. Look, first of all, if you cloak yourself in the red and blue and that's how you see life, it is what it is. If that's what your identity is, there's no hope for you. This is what you're doing. That right there is insane, right? The way that I think we've handled COVID at times has been underplayed and overplayed. Case in point, Seattle. They have safe street zones. You have to apply for a permit. Can't be more than a block long for safe street trick-or-treating. Is this insane? And I keep joking. This is what happened when blue takes over everything. It's all about feelings. None of it's about fact. But what if you get COVID from... You're not going to get COVID from trick-or-treating. They come up. They knock on the door. Usually your door's open, right? They walk in. You think, oh, look at you. You're a unicorn. And, oh, look at your pirate. And you hand them your candy and you move on. They don't breathe on you. You don't breathe on them. Like, we have lost the plot. But when you have the whispering lady of how afraid she is, what are you afraid of? What in God's name do you think is going to happen to you? I'm just curious. What's happening to you right now? What do you think is going to take place? What do you think is going to take place? Then you got lunacies where people are trying to figure out, how do we make Halloween even safer? We'll just cancel it all together because kids could be outside. And, oh, my God, well, just settle down, for God's sakes. Let the kids have fun. Let them go out. Let them enjoy themselves. Let them have some candy. Let them have a normal piece of life, knowing full well they can't go to school most places. I got a text last night from my son's mother saying that, Jack, they won't even think about reopening school till at least February. Is that insane? Why? Because of COVID. Okay. What's the data on the children? And the data of passing the children to adults and into this. Can we social distance? Can we do what? I'm curious. We need special things. Santa Claus is getting canceled. This is getting canceled. Settle down. Breathe. Let him go. Chad, are you going to let people trick or treat? I'm taking the kids trick or treating. We're going to have a little haunted house. Some of their friends are going to come over. We're going to have a good time. I'm not going to live my life in fear. At some point in time, you take some calculated risk. And this is one of those things where I'm like, we're going to be all right. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program as well. Wounded Paw Project. Been working with them for a while. They rescue dogs that would otherwise be euthanized, and they train them to be service dogs for veterans, first responders, and their family. And the work they do is just amazing. It is so incredible to see what they do. And how the dogs interact with the veterans, their families, as well as our first responders and their families for the needs that they have, whether it's struggling with an injury or PTSD or even a family member who's struggling with something. It is so amazing. Their motto is to save a paw is to save a life, and it is so true. They need your help. A gift of a vehicle, a donation of a vehicle, you get a great tax-deductible gift, which is awesome, but those proceeds are used to protect, advocate, and train these dogs, to take them from the shelter to be service dogs. Find out what you can do, how you can give, by going to woundedpawproject.org, woundedpawproject.org. It is truly amazing. woundedpawproject.org. You'll be saving a paw to save a life. All right, Chad's horror movie show countdown. We're on to number 3. The movie here that I'm going to be talking about, to me, is the scariest of them all. Chad Benson Show.
I'm so tired. I'm exhausted.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Now it's time for Chad's Evil Countdown. The best horror movies of all time. Can you handle it? Are you afraid? You should be.
All right. So we had Jaws, which I love. Yesterday we had Friday the 13th, which I absolutely love. Today we have the movie out of all of these that scared me the most. It was, at the time, terrifying. So everybody remembers the Blair Witch Project was something really big. People go back to the Blair Witch Project, and it was freaky. It was creepy. But lo and behold, a few years later, out came a movie called Paranormal Activity, shot for $15,000 by Oren Peli, starring Katie Featherstone and Micah Sloat. It spawned a bunch of other ones, which, by the way, by and large, most of them have been pretty good. I've enjoyed them. The movie cost $15,000. That's what it cost. It was purchased by DreamWorks and Steven Spielberg. Now, if you've not seen the movie, see it. It is creepy. It is scary. It's about a young couple in San Diego, California. Katie thinks that there's an evil presence in the house. And it goes from there, and her boyfriend, Micah, who's like a day trader, he's at home and he films all of this stuff, and it starts out little and it gets bigger, and then there's no denying that something's going on. There's the whole thing starting to unravel, and it is terrifying. And I just remember when my uncle saw it the first time, he saw it before I did, because the way they released it, and we'll talk about that, was very interesting. But he said, Chad, never has a piece of string and baby powder terrified you more than this. And I said, really? How they shot the movie was awesome. $15,000 is what they did. That was it. 15 grand. And they did no script. They gave an outline to the actors, let them essentially ad-lib most of the movie. They refilmed one scene and gave you a few endings, which they played. The way that they marketed the movie was they never showed you anything in the movie. They showed you the reaction of the crowd. They thought it was bombing because people were walking out when they were first trying to get it shown. But what was happening is people were terrified. Originally, when they bought the movie, they were going to redo the entire movie. After Spielberg and everybody saw it, said, no, we're going to do this. This thing's terrifying. Don't touch a thing. Today, ROI, return on investment, it remains the most profitable dollar-for-dollar movie ever released. The cost was $230,000 with a $200,000 reshoot, and it made $200 million at the box office. It is scary. It's called Paranormal Activity. It's number 3 in Chad's horror movie countdown. If you've not seen it, check it out. It is awesome. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Tweet at me, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. We're getting you over the hump in 6 more days. And then what? I don't know. Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.